Hello everybody, I hope you are having a wonderful Saturday, or maybe had a wonderful Saturday. I don't really know what time this video is going to come out, but last night there was a big update to the preview server. And so this is not live right now. Everything I'm going to talk about in this video is not live right now. It will probably be live within the next week or two, probably either this Thursday or the following Thursday on PC. I don't know about console. A whole lot was changed, but at the same time also not a lot. It's kind of weird. So I've got, I think, 3 different categories of stuff to talk about. The first, since as you can see, or maybe you can't tell, but I'm on my Warlock right now, looking stunning in my transmutes. There were a lot of Warlock changes. Almost all of them are damage buffs. So I haven't really played around in Warlock since mod 16 came out. A couple months after that I stopped really playing Warlock because I wanted to play Warlock as a healer, but it wasn't really that good. And some stuff was changed with that too, but I'm not going to try that out today. Anyway, I just want to see what the damage feels like. The first category, like I said, Warlock. Second category, I'm going to talk about the changes to critical severity and combat advantage, which are going to explain the damage output that you're going to be seeing from me. Now, just to be clear, I'm only 20k item level. I don't have that great of stuff. But, and then also, last category is going to be queues, because they changed the queues again, and this time it's like kinda how it was originally, but kinda not, and stuff is different, and you know, okay. That was the best explanation ever. So, I'm in this skirmish by myself, and we're gonna see if I can complete it by myself. I mean, I'm sure I could have completed it by myself before, but there was a couple different encounters, I think, added to this skirmish, because, like I'm gonna explain later, there were changes to skirmishes and earlier dungeons so that the time you spend is proportional to the reward you get. So they made some skirmishes longer, they made some dungeons shorter, I believe. So this is supposed to be a little bit longer, so I suppose we will see. I also think they made this one a little bit harder because they were, oh, I didn't crit. I was supposed to be, like, super impressive at the beginning. I'd really appreciate it if you didn't kill me, that would be great. Wait, what is tab is that? Fucha thing, okay. I don't know, I can't say that I've done this. I should go do this on live to really see the difference. Then it would be noticeable, I think. Let's try a daily. Oh, death happened. Okay. I mean, that works. I really like Warlock powers. I miss this a lot. No! Let me move, please. Please stop stunning me. Jesus Christ. Look at all those numbers. It feels almost like mod 15 again, but not really. Oh my lord! Stop it! I'm an innocent little dude. Don't I look so innocent? Look at... Help! Help! These big guys are annoying. Like, I get up and then I'm immediately slapped again. They really like beating me up. Look. Okay, I managed to get out of that one. Silver from the future here! Just saying that this was not a real test, and it was purely just so that you would have something to watch while I talk about all the different changes. I guess you can make your own judgment if you play a Warlock. So anyway, I'm basically just going to run through all the things that had their magnitudes increased or changed real quick, just so that you have a general idea. It's a decent amount of stuff, so hold on to your hats. So every single Hellbringer daily has had their magnitude increased. So Accursed Souls, Brood of Hadar, Tyrannical Curse, Gates of Hell, and Flames of Phlegethos all had their magnitudes increased. But Brood of Hadar in particular has their magnitude is 600 for the main target and 150 for every Brood attack that follows that. So, feats were changed as well. I did not mess around with the feats while I was doing this. Class features were changed a little bit as well. Dark Prayer is the very first class feature available. It was changed so that it summons a soul puppet whenever you have a lesser cursed enemy that dies around you, so that's nice. It's another way to spawn soul puppets. And soul puppet spawning and, you know, gaining those stacks of soul investiture is actually a lot more useful now, because soul investiture is now a 10% damage increase for the soul puppet per stack, and risky investment is a 4% bonus to encounter damage for each stack of soul investiture that you have. It says in the new tooltip that it's encounter damage, but in the actual patch notes it only says regular damage, so it's not as good as its made out to be. So yeah. Also, something else, encounters have been moved around a little bit. Killing Flames and Dread Theft have been moved into the Hellbringer specific Paragon encounter section, and Arms of Hadar and Blades of Vanquished Armies have been moved into the general encounters. So a couple things are mixed around. In the background video that you're watching, I didn't notice until about halfway through that I had the wrong encounter than the one that I wanted, because it goes off of position, and the one that was in the position that I had previously is not the right one, so I had to switch in the middle. Yeah, okay. That was a really pointless and long explanation. There was one nerf, though, and that is that Hellfire Expertise no longer increases fire and necrotic damage, and there were some people complaining about that. So I don't know how that's gonna go. Soul Sparks in general now increase Hellbringer damage by 0.2% per spark. I believe it was 0.1% previously, but I could be wrong. Soul Scorch had its magnitude increased to 9 per spark that you use, and the dot has increased to 1.5 per spark magnitude. I don't really remember. I think it was 6 magnitude before, and then 1. I have a really bad memory. It's been a few months since I played Warlock, I'm sorry. But with all the changes, I kind of do want to pick it up again to see how it will do. Soul Weaver has had some changes as well, which is what I'm mostly interested in, but Warlock is just fun for me. I just didn't play it because it really had no place. At least I thought so. So we will see how these changes go. Okay, now back to my original thing, encounters. Arms of Hadar, Vampiric Embrace, Blades of Vanquished Armies, Hadar's Grasp, Fiery Bolt, Killing Flame, Hellfire Ring have all had their magnitudes increased in some way, so you'll see more damage output from all of those. And then in the Soul Weaver Paragon, the Healy Wheelie Paragon, Lifebind is now only taking 10% of the damage dealt to your allies. I believe that was the feat that it was 30% before. You'd take 30% of their damage, and that was really rough. So it also doesn't give you a bonus to defense anymore. It gives you an increase in damage reduction. So I'm not sure how they apply that really, but my guess is, maybe somebody smart can tell me I'm wrong, that damage reduction is applied before or after your defensive stats. Like, I'm assuming one of them is applied to the incoming damage first, and then the second one, instead of them being lumped together and being less effective. So I'm guessing it'd be more effective. Like I said, if you're smart, you can tell me how wrong I am in the comments, but that's my educated guess. There's a feat, Transfusion Tactics. It was changed to be called Mending Mastery, and it increases your outgoing healing by 5%, which is kind of helpful. The Prince of Hell class feature is now 5,000 armor penetration that it gives you, and Dark Revelry increases your teammates' awareness and critical avoidance by 5,000. And 2 more things for Soul Weaver. Soul Sparks no longer deplete whenever you're down, and the Wraith Shadow encounter, the healing magnitude was increased to 100. Wraith Shadow is the one that does damage and heals at the same time. So, that was it for Warlock. A bunch of changes. Hopefully they're all for the better, or at least hopefully you think they're all for the better. And I'm honestly really hopeful that Warlock is going to have more of a place in group content, because I would love to damage dungeons and stuff on my Warlock and do my randoms on there, because I think that would be fun. There was one change to Rogues though, and that was to their Whirlwind of Blades daily, probably my favorite daily that they have, because it's so majestic. You're like, pshing! The target cap was up to 15. It was increased to 15 instead of 5. But the damage increase that you get from it can't exceed the original 5s. You only get the damage bonus for the first 5 targets hit, but it can hit up to 15. Which section did I say was next? I said I was going to do the critical severity and combat advantage. Okay. So both of these were changed, as well as how buffs and powers are applied to the character. Now, I'm not a huge math person. If you've watched my channel at all, you know that I am probably one of the worst people at math ever. But critical severity and combat advantage, the bonus damage that you get from them is going to be doubled. So the example that's given here is if you had 100% critical severity and 100% combat advantage damage bonus, you would do 3 times as much damage when you crit if you have combat advantage active. So if you get all those bonuses, you would do 3 times as much damage as your basic hit. Now, if you have the exact same scenario, 100% critical severity and 100% combat advantage damage, you will do 4 times as much damage. You'll have double from the 100% crit severity and double from the combat advantage. So having combat advantage and getting as close to the cap as possible is going to be more important, I would imagine. And critical severity is also going to be probably more important. However, there is one negative to this that I will get to in a second. The buffs and the powers you have that increase the damage you deal are additive instead of multiplicative. Now, remember, I learned what additive and multiplicative mean when I was in middle school. And that was a long time ago. But luckily for us, Terramac has provided examples of these things, so us not smart mathy people can sort of understand what's going on. Back to the main topic. Now, all the buffs and stuff that increase your damage dealt are additive, meaning they'll, add together. So if you have a 10% damage buff, a 5% damage buff, you will have a 15% total damage buff before you get to critical strike, combat advantage, or damage reduction effects. Before, it was multiplicative. So before, critical severity, combat advantage, and your damage buffs were added together and then multiplied off the base damage. So it is a little bit different, actually kind of a lot different. And the other big change is that critical severity, combat advantage, and damage buffs are multiplied on top of each other instead of added together and multiplied off the base damage. So that's kind of similar to what I said with the damage buff, but with the critical severity and combat advantage too. There were some instances where some damage bonuses were added and some were multiplied, and that meant that some classes or different builds were ending up with different damage multipliers, so they should be more consistent now between classes and builds. According to No Worries, this should make a method of damage increase that is clear and consistent, which will make planning out the setup of a character easier. I guess if you are calculating math while you're setting up your character, which most people are not, including myself. To top off all that, it's not working 100% correctly on preview right now, so people are still doing less damage than they should be. On to the negative that I was talking about. The Vorpal enchantment has been nerfed. If you didn't see it coming, then, I think you might have been living under a rock, because Vorpal is just like the center of the world at the moment when it comes to weapon enchantments. But a rank 14 Vorpal enchantment will only give you 15% bonus critical severity. Now this looks, on paper that looks like a huge nerf, but critical severity is doubly as effective as before when it comes to damage bonus. So if you do the math and, put that back to old version, it's like 30%. So 15 times 2 is 30. So, and rank 14 right now is 40%. So it's a 10% nerf, effectively. That's how my mind looks at it. So it has been nerfed, it's still going to be effective. The point was to bring it more in line with other weapon enchantments. Now this change is not on preview yet. So I would imagine that if you are using a Vorpal on preview right now and see a lot of damage increase, that will be reduced a little bit once the Vorpal change hits preview. So keep that in mind whenever you're testing out stuff, if you plan on doing that. Oh, I forgot one thing. Actually, I forgot a couple things. Going back to what I was saying about additiveness and multiplicativeness, if you have powers or buffs that decrease the damage that you take, all of those are multiplicative with each other instead of some being additive. So if you have two separate 50% damage reduction effect... Now this is the one that I don't understand, because the example given here is a player that has two separate 50% damage reduction effects should consistently take only 25% of base damage. Wait a minute. The light bulb has gone off. So you take the damage that's incoming to you, cut it in half, and then another 50% damage reduction means you cut that in half again, means it's 25. See, I'm smart sometimes. I figured it out. Okay. Now, the last thing is that enemies from levels 60 to 80 have had their hit points increased a little bit. So, that is all for that section, and now we can talk about queues, because queues are different and stuff. The rewards have been changed, the categories that certain dungeons and stuff are in have been changed, and some requirements have been changed also. And then also some stuff in the maps were changed. So I have kind of a lot to go through in this section. I hope you don't get bored. So anyways, there are 4 random queues now. I think there were 4 before. Leveling, Intermediate, Advanced, Expert. Yeah, there was 4 before, but there's a different 4 now. They're just called Dungeon, Skirmish, Epic Dungeon, and Trial. And you can imagine which different queues are available in each section, I would hope. The rewards have been decreased from the easier queues and increased for the harder queues. As of right now on preview, if you complete the dungeon queue, you're getting 5,500 daily as your daily bonus, fast raw diamonds. This is not including the roll bonuses, by the way. So 5,500 from the dungeon queue, 6,000 from the skirmish queue, 23,000 for the epic dungeon queue, and 34,000 for the trial queue. And no, Tower of the Mad Mage is not in the trial queue. The dungeon queue contains all of the leveling dungeons, all 8 of them, and then the skirmish queue contains all your skirmishes, and then also Kessel's Retreat, the Shores of Turn, and yeah, those 2. And this is because they're generally formatted more like a skirmish than a dungeon, although I never really considered Kessel's as being more of a skirmish, although I guess it kind of is. It only has 1 boss, and so does Turn, and you're just like, you know, fighting stuff. Then in the epic dungeon queue, you have everything from Temple of the Spider all the way through up to Tomb of the Nine Gods. And this, you know, these are in a weird order. I don't like it. It's change, and change is bad. Hiss. And then in your trial queue, you just have Demogorgon, the Master version, Tiamat, and the Master Svarborg. That's it. There are people who are unhappy about this, but to be honest, I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, it gives people more of a reason to queue for the epic dungeon in the trial because you get a lot more AD that way. You're queuing for things that are more in line with what your character is capable of instead of only doing the things that are super easy and boring. So the role requirements for skirmish were removed again. I think they weren't there, and then they were, and then they were not. Unless I'm thinking of regular dungeons. There's so much stuff that changes that I can't keep track of it all anymore. Now anyway, now on to the actual specifics of the maps that were changed. There's actually not as many as I thought. Okay, maybe there's a lot. Let me just start from the beginning. So, as far as Malabog's Castle is concerned, respawn points are properly distributed evenly throughout the map. Not something I ever noticed a problem with, but, I mean, hey, it's not a bad thing. And there are about 20% fewer enemy encounters in the dungeon, and it's been made easier in general, so, I mean, I think that's a good thing. In Temple of the Spider, 2 new doors have been added to the dungeon. All doors require the party to be out of combat, and enemies have to have been defeated before you advance. So, people are running through Temple of the Spider, I guess, and so they want to make it a little longer. They're basically trying to make the run times, the time it takes you to complete each dungeon, about the same for each group that's in a queue. So all of the regular dungeons should be able to be completed in roughly the same time. All of the skirmishes, all the same time, you know, so they had to add and subtract some things to sort of make that balance happen. And then also, something called team corrals have been added to the first and second boss fight. I don't know what that means, but a corral is something that groups things together, I believe. That's interesting. Also, the first and second bosses in Temple of the Spider, Cragmire Crypts, and Grey Wolf Den, all master versions have had their health points increased to be around the same as the other bosses. In the Grey Wolf Den, the damage of the different attacks and the number of enemies have been reduced, and so it should be a little bit easier to complete that. And then in the Master Spellplague Caverns, some of the enemies have been removed, and whenever you fall off the platform during the fight with the Stone Eye, you're returned to the platform but in a down state. So you're able to be revived if you fall off the map. And the same thing happens in the Tomb of the Nine Gods in the final boss, Ras Nisi. If you fall off, you're teleported back up onto the platform and you can be revived. Now that, I think, is interesting. I mean, it's certainly convenient if you fall off the map, but at the same time, it kind of takes away some of the challenge, because if you fall off a map, it's no big deal. I can just use a scroll or get revived now, and it takes away a lot of the difficulty, I think. Right, so skirmishes. Like I said before, Kessel's Retreat and Shores of Turn are added to the skirmish category, and there are no role requirements anymore. And some enemies have been added to Dread Legion, Master of the Hunt, Shores of Turn, and Garandar the Vile, so to make it a little bit longer. Now onto the mystery change. Many Coins Bank Heist. This skirmish should now properly... And then there's nothing after that. So we don't know. We just know that the skirmish should now properly. Which says to me that something is fixed that was broken before. So that's nice. And then, lastly, but not leastly for skirmishes, probably my favorite change, Prophecy of Madness, the duration of the skirmish was reduced by about 20%. So, and it's also 25% easier to reach gold rank. So maybe I still think it's going to be the most annoying skirmish in the game, but it at least isn't as long now, and it's easier to get gold, so yay? Question mark? Trials. Dun dun dun. Demogorgon was made harder. He has more hit points, the damage that he does with his attacks have been increased, but his Tentacle Strike no longer applies stacks of madness, and Paranoid Delusions apply madness less often. The damage from Demogorgon's Maddening Aura applies every 15 seconds instead of 4, and it was also increased, so you do more damage, and you get a visual effect too, because it's nice and fancy and stuff. Well, that has been everything that is currently on preview right now, so hopefully you could sit through that and listen to it all, or read it, I guess. You know, reading's an option. I have it linked in the description, so if you want to let me a comment? I've been talking too much. If you want to leave me a comment and tell me what you think of this patch, if you agree or disagree with any of the things that were done, or anything that you would have done instead, you can do that. In the meantime, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to subscribe and be subscribed to my channel of subscriptions, and like the video if you feel like adding your thumb to my thumb collection. Anyways, that is it for today, so I guess I'll let you go watch something more interesting now. Okay, bye!